Boston woke under a blanket of late March chill. The sky, a dull slate gray, mirrored the life of Mike Henderson, a 39-year-old electrician with tired eyes and calloused hands. He tugged down the brim of his worn-out cap and stepped into his aging blue pickup, the faded Henderson Repairs logo peeling at the edges. A widower raising his teenage daughter alone, Mike kept his head down, working long hours rewiring homes that looked nothing like the one he lost. His world was small, grounded in reality and responsibility. Meanwhile, Lauren Becker, a sharp, well-known criminal defense attorney, had just moved into a high-rise in Back Bay. Recently divorced and not looking back, she bought the sleek new apartment as a symbol of control and self-sufficiency. Love, she told herself, was a thing for novels and fools. It started with a fuse box. A sudden blackout in Lauren's apartment brought her face-to-face with Mike one Thursday afternoon. She opened the door expecting a building technician. Instead, a tall man with strong shoulders and weathered features stood there, toolbox in hand and a polite nod ready. She was all silk blouse and pointed questions. He was utility boots and quiet observation. "Lauren Becker?" he asked, checking the address on his phone. "That's me. You're here for the power issue." He nodded. "Mike Henderson, electrician. Building manager said you've got a breaker problem." As he stepped inside, neither noticed Emma, Mike's daughter, waiting in the truck, watching her father disappear behind a polished door. "Here we go with—" Mike worked with the focus of someone who found comfort in wires and circuits. Lauren, standing a few steps away, folded her arms and tried not to fidget. She wasn't used to strangers in her space, especially ones who didn't fill silence with small talk. He didn't comment on her modern art prints or the way her books were arranged by color. He just examined the fuse box, muttered something about poor grounding, and got to work. Over the next hour, Lauren found herself observing him more than necessary. His movements were deliberate, confident. He wiped his hands on a cloth with care, not rushing, not stalling. When she offered coffee, he declined softly but thanked her like it mattered. "I don't get many clients who stay in the room while I work," he said without looking up. "I don't get many electricians who don't overshare about their fantasy football teams," she replied, a hint of amusement in her voice. He gave a small laugh, more exhale than sound, but it was genuine. That was the first crack in the professional veneer between them. The next day, the building called again. Water dripping from a ceiling fixture in the guest bedroom. "Same guy?" Lauren asked. "Always the same guy," the manager said. Mike showed up with the same quiet presence. This time, she offered coffee again, and he accepted. They sat at the counter while sealant dried and talked about things that weren't too personal but not meaningless either. Emma's school play, Lauren's awful experience in jury selection, her father's broken record player, and how Mike once repaired a toaster with a paperclip and prayer. A rhythm formed. Small problems, followed by Mike's visits. Coffee turned into short walks to the bakery on the corner. Conversation stretched a little longer. They didn't touch, didn't flirt in the usual sense, but something warmer passed between them, an understanding. He asked once if she missed her old place. She asked if he ever fixed things he couldn't see. He didn't answer right away. "I try," he finally said, his voice low. "Doesn't always work." Lauren nodded. She understood exactly what he meant. By the end of April, Mike had stopped knocking before entering, and Lauren had started opening the window by the kitchen so she could hear his truck pull in. Absolutely. Now we dive into the heart of the story. Lauren hadn't meant for it to become regular. Mike showing up every few days, sometimes with an excuse, leaky outlet, suspicious buzzing, but sometimes just with coffee and a question about whether her espresso machine was still acting temperamental. She let it happen, though. Part of her even waited for it. But feelings crept in like a draft beneath a locked door. She was meticulous with boundaries. She'd built a life on them, between clients and conscience, courtrooms and personal beliefs, heart and logic. Yet with Mike, Those lines blurred. He wasn't pushy. He didn't ask her out. He didn't need to. The warmth between them felt lived in, like furniture you never meant to buy, but suddenly couldn't live without. One evening, after her day had collapsed into courtroom chaos and angry emails, he showed up just as she was closing her laptop. Emma was in the truck, headphones on, waiting. Mike came in, looking tired but steady, like always. "You okay?" he asked. She shrugged. Nothing a drink or a 2-week vacation in Sicily wouldn't solve. He gave that half smile of his and took a slow breath. "Sicily sounds better, but I got tea in the truck." That night, they sat at the kitchen island, sipping peppermint tea, silent for a long time. Then Lauren said something she hadn't said out loud in years. "I don't do this. I don't let people in anymore." Mike set down his mug. "Me neither." And there it was, confession as connection. But the next morning, reality returned with its clipboard and checklist. Emma was caught in a fight at school. A classmate mocked her for never talking about her mother. Mike rushed to the school, his voice raised for the first time in years. Emma refused to speak for hours. That same day, Lauren's ex-husband showed up at her office, smug and bitter, saying her new handyman boyfriend was making rounds in the courthouse gossip pool. Lauren felt the press of old fears, judgment, vulnerability, the risk of caring for someone who might not understand the weight she carried. She pulled away, canceled coffee the next day, didn't answer his text the one after. Mike, used to silence from grief, didn't push, but he felt it like a splinter he couldn't reach. He paced his kitchen, stared at the phone, deleted messages. Before sending them, Emma noticed. "Is it her?" she asked. He hesitated. "Yeah." "You like her?" "Yeah." Emma's voice was soft. "Then fix it. You fix everything else." Lauren, meanwhile, wrestled with an older fear. That she didn't deserve someone kind, someone who saw her without asking her to shrink. Her life had been defined by proving herself, but with Mike, there was nothing to prove. Just the terrifying possibility of being seen. On a rainy Tuesday, she spotted his truck outside her building and panicked. She ducked behind her couch like a teenager hiding from a crush, heart pounding like it hadn't in years. She didn't let him in. He didn't knock. That night, she cried harder than she had since her divorce. Days passed, then a week, then 2. The silence between Lauren and Mike was not dramatic, just persistent, like static on a forgotten radio station. She buried herself in court cases and late nights at the firm. Her phone remained silent, the last message from Mike still unread. She didn't delete it. She didn't reply either. Emma stopped asking questions. She didn't push. But she noticed how her dad stared out the window longer after dinner, how he took the long way home from school drop-offs, how the music in the truck stayed off. Mike worked more than ever. Ceiling fans, outdoor lighting, a messy rewiring job at a diner across town. Anything to keep busy. But nothing filled the space Lauren had quietly occupied in his days. She was everywhere and nowhere at once. The window by her kitchen, where he once waited for her voice. The bakery, where her laughter used to echo off the glass. Her favorite tea, still in his glove compartment. Lauren tried to convince herself it was better this way. Clean, practical, safer. But safety felt a lot like loneliness at night. She'd open her balcony door, hoping to hear the familiar rattle of Mike's truck. She never did. Then, one evening, as she walked home from work, rain soaking her coat, she passed a couple laughing under a shared umbrella. Something twisted inside her. Not jealousy, not regret. Something deeper. Grief, maybe. Grief for the version of herself she had been with him, unguarded, silly, soft. A woman who believed again in the good kind of mess. At home, she pulled out the note she'd scribbled the night she first canceled coffee with him. It was never sent. It simply read, "I'm scared, that's all." She folded it again. She still wasn't ready to send it. but she left the window open. It was Emma who broke the silence. She showed up at Lauren's building on a late Saturday morning, hoodie pulled tight, eyes red from the cold, or maybe something else. The doorman buzzed up, confused. Lauren, in leggings and a sweatshirt, opened the door expecting groceries. Emma. The girl stepped inside, awkward and quiet. She held something in her hand, a small envelope. The kind that looked too intentional to be casual. I know it's weird. He won't come. But he wrote this. She placed the envelope on Lauren's kitchen counter and turned to leave. He doesn't know I'm here. He wouldn't have let me. But I couldn't watch him pretend anymore. Lauren didn't open the letter until hours later. She paced, made tea, cleaned, sat, stood again. When she finally unfolded the paper, Mike's handwriting stared back at her, firm, crooked, unmistakably his. Lauren, you don't owe me anything. Not a call, not a text, not a reason. But if you're reading this, it means you kept something open. So I'm saying this, just in case. You once asked if I ever tried fixing things I couldn't see. You are the first thing I've wanted to fix that didn't need fixing. You're not a project. You're not broken. But I am scared. And I think you are too. Maybe that's what we understand in each other. And maybe that's what makes this real. I miss the sound of you. That's all. Mike. The paper trembled in her hands, and with it came a flood. The quiet mornings, the tea mugs, the way he looked at her like she was already enough. The truth she hadn't admitted even to herself. She hadn't pushed him away because she didn't care. She'd pushed him away because she did. She folded the letter, hands unsteady, and grabbed her coat. Across town, Mike was in the middle of a lighting job in a half-renovated church. When he came down the ladder and turned around, Lauren was there, hair windswept, eyes shining, a single sentence ready. You're not the only one who misses the sound of something. Mike didn't speak at first. He just stared at her, as if he wasn't sure she was real. Behind them, the dusty chandelier he'd been fixing swayed gently from the motion of the ladder. Outside, the city kept moving. But in that small church filled with scaffolding and flickering light, everything stood still. Lauren stepped closer. You said you miss the sound of me. Her voice cracked. Well, I miss what I sounded like with you. I miss who I was. Mike blinked. Once. Twice. Then took a shaky breath. I didn't know how to come back, he admitted. Didn't know if you'd want me to. I didn't know if I could let you, she whispered. But I do. I do want you to. That was all it took. He closed the space between them in 2 steps and pulled her into his arms like she belonged there. It wasn't dramatic or fiery. It was steady and full, like exhaling after holding your breath for too long. Her face pressed into his shoulder. His hand settled between her shoulder blades. And in that stillness, the noise of fear faded. Later, they sat on a bench outside the church, coffee cups between them, watching pigeons fight over crumbs. I didn't know Emma would come, he said. She did good, Lauren smiled. She's more intuitive than most adults I know. She's been through enough to see things people miss. You both have, she added softly. Mike looked at her. So have you, she shrugged. Yeah, but I think I finally got tired of outrunning my own heart. He reached for her hand, calloused fingers gently closing over hers. Then maybe we start slow, no scripts, just wiring things day by day. Lauren grinned. As long as you don't rewire my espresso machine without asking. He chuckled. Deal. Their fingers laced like they'd always known how. It wasn't a grand gesture. No flash mobs, no rooftop declarations. Just 2 people who had once walked away from love, finding their way back, with simple honesty, open hands, and the kind of love that doesn't demand perfection, only presence. A few months later, Lauren's apartment felt different, warmer. The sharp angles softened with everyday touches. A worn denim jacket hung near the door, a toolbox tucked behind the coat rack, Emma's sketchbook on the coffee table beside a mug half full of cold tea. Mike never moved in officially, he just stopped leaving. Emma, once quiet and guarded, now greeted Lauren with sarcastic wit and stories from school. Lauren, in return, helped her prep for mock trial auditions. She even cheered embarrassingly loud at Emma's school play, where the teenager played a surprisingly heartfelt tree. Mike's business changed too. Not bigger, just better. Word spread of the electrician who actually listens, and he began hiring a second set of hands, mentoring a young guy from the neighborhood. Lauren helped him with the paperwork and built him a real website. She refused to let him keep using Comic Sans. On weekends, the three of them explored flea markets, picked up records, argued over pizza toppings. Neighbors started noticing. The tough attorney from 18B, once all heels and cold glances, now smiled in the elevator. The guy in the truck became the man who carried groceries for Mrs. Donnelly in 14A. Even the old church Mike was rewiring held a new air, hosting a free art night every Thursday, with Emma helping to organize. Their love wasn't loud. It was built-in laughter over broken light fixtures, in shared glances across the kitchen, in a girl's quiet nod when someone asked if that was her family. And it was. Lauren found the note on a Tuesday morning, slipped inside the drawer where she kept her coffee filters. On the outside, it simply said, "For when you doubt." Inside, in Mike's steady, imperfect handwriting, was a message she didn't know she needed but would read more than once. "Lauren, you fixed more than my wiring. You made space for silence without loneliness, for noise without chaos. You let me be the kind of man I'd forgotten I could be. So when the world makes you question things, your place in it, us, yourself, remember this. You were the light, long before I knew how to follow it." She folded it carefully and placed it in her wallet, right next to a photo Emma had taken of the three of them, arms linked, faces soft with joy. Years. From that first fuse box, Lauren would still remember the smell of rain on concrete and the feel of Mike's hand, rough, reliable, wrapped around hers. Their life had never been about grandness. It was built in real time, in missed alarms, shared bills and bedtime stories retold for a girl who once thought she'd never call another woman family. Mike kept fixing things, light switches, ceiling fans, hearts. Lauren kept fighting in courtrooms, but always came home to something soft, something safe. Love didn't make their lives easier, it made them braver. And every time doubt crept in, she reached for the folded paper in her wallet. She never had to read it again to remember. But she liked knowing it was there. A promise, a memory, a beginning that never stopped beginning. Not perfect, but whole.